will you do if Harris doesn't win, if she loses?
Well, I would do the same thing I did when Hillary didn't win. I cried for 2 weeks. I was sick for 2 weeks that she didn't win.
How would you react if Trump loses?
I'll be so sad. I'll be disappointed. But what can you do? You know what I mean? We're not the ones that are going to go burn the city down. Trust me, that's not going to happen. We're all just going to go back to work and complain.
This week, in these final days of the presidential race, we went out to 2 different rallies on the same day.
What is your level of confidence right now in terms of what's going to happen a week from now?
I think she's going to sweep and she's going to win.
So you said that you're a Trump supporter as well. What are you feeling and how are you feeling? It's a tight election.
I feel very confident. Like, I've seen the crowds that show up, and the only time, and like they say people leave early, well, that's because they can't get in.
The Washington Post polling average shows a race that remains incredibly tight. And we wanted to know, how are Trump and Harris's supporters, the ones who are motivated to go out and see their candidate in person, how are they feeling right now? From the newsroom of The Washington Post, this is Post Reports. I'm Martine Powers. It's Thursday, October 31st. Today, our visits to these 2 parallel universes, Trump world and Harris world. We'll hear what's bringing people out to these events in these final days before November 5th. And we'll ask how they're thinking about the future if their candidate wins or loses. We're starting at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. That's where Vice President Kamala Harris chose to give her closing arguments of the campaign on Tuesday night. We got to the Ellipse at about 4:30 in the afternoon. Harris was set to go on stage around 7:30. There were thousands of people in lines waiting to get past security and inside the fence for the rally. A lot of people we talked to had been there all afternoon. Some people were taking a bit of a creative approach to the line.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this line cutting that's happening. Is it sanctioned line cutting or unsanctioned line cutting?
Other people made peace with just waiting around for a while. I got to know some of my line neighbors, including Brenda Carmody and Kay Klein, who were right in front of me. They were both decked out in tons of Harris gear. T-shirts, hats, a pin with a little cartoon Harris in a pantsuit. They were chatting away, and I thought that they'd come here together. But Kay and Brenda had actually just met each other in line.
I love that. I thought just assumed that you both were friends.
Yeah, we are now.
Brenda is 75 years old. She's a psychiatric nurse practitioner and lives in Virginia.
My daughter was giving me a fit. She goes, "You can't go by yourself. You're 75. You don't know who's going to, blah, 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 blah." I said, "I'm going." I said, I've waited my whole life to be able to do something like I'm doing today. I've voted in every election for every Democrat for forever. And this year, it's like preserving democracy. This is so important. And I feel like I'm doing it for my granddaughter. I have a 19-year-old granddaughter, and yeah, I would not miss being here.
When you say that you feel like you're here for your granddaughter, what does that mean?
Reproductive rights is a big one. The abortion situation, saving democracy for her.
One thing I'm wondering is, so let's say Harris wins. Mm-hmm. You have a neighbor who is a Trump supporter.
At church.
Really wanted, people you go to church with. What is your message to them to reassure them about their fears of what they are scared will happen if Harris is president?
This is the kind of a president that she'll be. She's not going to be vindictive. She's not going to look for revenge. And the things that they're afraid of, if you look, the great motivator for these people is fear. And if you can help them see that they don't have, it's a straw man. You don't have anything to be afraid of. The immigrants are not going to take over your town and eat your cats and dogs, okay?
A little later on, we met another couple of people in a different security line, Richard Davis and Sean Murray. They have been friends for years, and not just for what felt like years waiting in line.
I've known him for about 30 years. 32.
Where did you guys meet? Huh? Where did you meet?
In Turkey.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Now, Sean works for the Department of Homeland Security, and Richard is a contractor for the Department of Defense. This is Richard's voice first.
I just want to be a part of history, say that I came to see the president before she was president.
If she becomes president.
When she becomes president.
What is your confidence level right now in terms of
her becoming president? I would say 80%.
What's the 20%?
All of the litigation that's going to go forward that's probably going to clog it up.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What is your confidence level?
My confidence level is actually pretty high.
Why?
Common sense. In my mind, I'm thinking common sense.
I'd rather vote a lawyer than a felon. That's pretty simple, isn't it? A lot of jobs in this area, you can't get a job, a federal job.
I'm trying to get my good government job cut.
Exactly, if you have a felony.
That's where I gotta go.
So I'm like, it's common sense, like you said.
What will you do if Harris loses?
Respect the will of the people.
Respect the process.
Like we did last time.
And then keep going on about my business.
Exactly.
What is your message so if Harris were to win, what would be your message to Trump supporters who are not only disappointed and angry, but also fearful? That there are a lot of people in this country who feel very afraid of what a Harris presidency would look like, or would think that it would mean bad things for them or their family or the economy, or...
I would say, remember 2016 and January 20th when we had to go through the same thing that they are probably going to go through if and when she wins? Suck it up like we did. Wait 4 years until your candidate wins.
Give her a chance.
Exactly.
Before you just say, oh, I can't do this, give her a chance. We had to do it. We had to see what happened when he became president.
At this point, it was getting dark. We'd been talking with Harris supporters for about 3 hours, and most people were already inside the perimeter waiting for Harris to go on stage. I had time to talk to one more family before going through security myself. This is Yasser. He didn't feel comfortable sharing his full name. He also works for DHS. He was at the rally with his kids and grandkids.
And I'd love to hear why you came here.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, because we love Harris, I think.
Yeah.
Right? That's number one. And I think we don't want Trump to be anywhere near the presidency again. I mean, we're Muslim, and the whole Palestinian thing kind of compels you to stay home, but staying home is like a vote for the other guy.
So, I mean, I would be particularly curious to hear your point of view on this, because you acknowledge that for Muslim Americans that it is a tough vote thinking about, the Palestine issue, and especially, we've done a lot of reporting in Michigan where folks are thinking of staying home for that reason.
I've had to convince my own family members that, no, you can't do that.
Really?
Yeah, you just cannot stay home. And
yeah, tell me a little bit more about what those conversations are like.
Muslims tend to be more conservative, so it's easier to appeal to us. I mean, I've seen it in my own neighborhood, my own family, where during the Virginia elections, this gubernatorial elections, a lot of them went for the Republican guy. And I was so disappointed. I was like, you know what? We're voting against our own interests because those other guys don't really care about the middle class or a lot of the concerns that whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jew, or whatever, as American, as middle class, you should really vote Democrat, in my opinion.
So what is your confidence level right now in terms of what's going to happen next week?
I'm losing sleep, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. Because it's I don't get it. A lot of the Muslims are in countries where we have strong men like Trump, and I don't understand. We fled that stuff. Why are we trying to bring it here? It just doesn't make sense to me, right? But for whatever crazy reason, it has an appeal, that strong man appeal. It's just, just throws me, it just drives me nuts, personally.
So what will you do if Harris loses?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not going to say that I will leave. I have to stay, and we have to fight even harder. I just don't know how that's going to pan out. I don't know. I can't think about it, honestly. It's just, it's so depressing to think about it.
Yasser was the only person who brought up Gaza to me, but he was not the only one thinking about it that night. As I got closer to the rally grounds, I could hear pro-Palestinian demonstrators lined up all along the fence at the perimeter. They carried signs that said things like "Stop Arming Israel" and "Free Palestine."
We finally got through security. They basically cut off anyone else from getting into the rally. There are crowds gathered along the fence line of people who weren't able to get in. And as we were just walking along, I just looked over to the right, you see the Washington Monument, and there's like a sea of people all the way back to the Washington Monument. People who didn't get in, but who are still here, I guess, to hear Harris, see her from far away, maybe on one of the screens, but it's like this huge mass of people on the mall who I think are here to support Harris.
Harris took the stage shortly after 7:30.
Good evening, America! Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives.
Being honest, there were so many people there and the rally was so crowded that I couldn't actually get close enough to see Harris with my own eyes. But on one of the several jumbotrons that they had around the stage, you could see this almost visual argument that Harris could do this job. She stood behind a lectern with the vice presidential seal, flanked with American flags, and with the south facade of the White House glowing behind her. It almost seemed like the goal was to create a split screen with the events of January 6th, when Trump stood in roughly the same spot before urging his armed supporters to head to the Capitol.
America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are.
In about 30 minutes, it was all over. Everyone made their way back through the security checkpoint and crowded up again, this time to leave.
I wonder how Trump's rally went tonight.
About 200 miles north of Washington, D.C., another group of passionate voters had also waited in line for hours. After the break, we hear voices from Trump's rally. We'll be right back.
Okay, so I'm here in the middle of downtown Allentown. I see a lot of red hats.
While I was in D.C. at Kamala Harris's rally on the Ellipse, my colleague Alana Gordon, an audio producer here on Post Reports, went to Allentown, Pennsylvania for another rally for former President Donald Trump.
I see suits, bow ties, blue and red, very patriotic. I see a sign that says "Fight for Trump." When I get to downtown Allentown mid-afternoon, people are crowding the street across from this towering historic monument. They're filing into a long line that zigzags, waiting to enter the rally in just a few hours. Okay, so what brings you here?
I got some tickets online and I wanted to see it. I want to see history.
Yeah, me too.
I catch Todd Cowsen and his neighbor Joe Dewar as they head over from a parking garage. We pause to talk for a few minutes. What makes it historic to you?
I think this election is probably the tightest election that we'll see in our generation.
Todd is 61 and works at a casino. Joe's 65. He's a custodian. They drove here from the Poconos, a little under an hour away. So what stands out to you about Trump?
I think he really has a grasp reaching out and talking to the people who work in this country. Like his idea on no tax on tips. Love it, because in my job, that's what I do.
Tell me about what you do again.
I deal poker in a casino, so 90% of what I make are tips.
Pennsylvania is a swing state. Todd says his own politics have flipped.
I was a Democrat. My family were in many unions when I grew up. And then over the years, I think the party has kind of drifted away from the working people. You know, I don't think we'll see Beyonce here tonight.
So one of the things we've been asking people is, like, we've been hearing a lot of anxiety from people about what would happen if, like, the other person wins. And I wonder, what would you tell a neighbor who supports Harris in the event that Trump wins about how would you assure them, given this moment of, like, polarization, I guess you could say?
I mean, look at his first 4 years. I can't imagine how great we would have been if there was no Russia, and all these other things that stopped him. I mean, America was on a trajectory of who knows how high we could have went.
Yeah, Harris is really scary. The unknown. I don't understand how she has any support. It's just, I don't know. It's obvious to me, but I don't know. We'll see.
What would you do if Trump were to not win? How would you react?
We'd just go on. That's all.
Yeah, what can you do? You just have to hope for the best.
How would you want Trump to react?
I would probably want him to make sure every avenue was pursued legally in court.
I would say fight, fight, fight.
Pennsylvania has 19 electoral votes, one of the biggest numbers up for grabs. Trump and his campaign have been making claims of voter fraud happening in the state. Voting rights advocates and Democratic officials say safeguards are working.
My name's Kristen, and I'm from Lake Havasu City, Arizona, and I have been traveling for the last 3 months selling Trump merchandise at the rallies.
What about, like, the energy and the vibe?
Very energetic, very positive. Everybody's happy, everybody's friendly.
I meet Kristen Sarbeck across from that main area by the monument. She's got pink hair sticking out from under a red Make America Great Again beanie. She's selling Trump hats, even bedazzled ones, and buttons. Tell me what these buttons have on them.
My buttons say Trump 2024. I've got one that says, yes, I'm a Trump 2024 girl, get over it. I stand with Trump, not guilty. Know your parasites. We have deer tick, Lone Star tick, wood tick, and lunatic.
And that's a picture of Vice President Harris right there.
That is correct.
Kristen's 48. She has other jobs when she's not selling merch. She's a tax preparer, a bartender.
I'm feeling hopeful because when Trump was president, from till 20, financially, it was the best I've ever been. And I've been a single mom. And I was able, my bills were paid. I was doing great financially. Didn't have to stress about anything. Gas prices were low. Food was reasonable.
I asked Kristen this question we've been putting to voters at both rallies. How would she reassure a Harris supporter about what would happen if Trump wins?
Like, well, didn't we have bigger paychecks? And were we doing well during the first turnaround? And what has she shown? What has she done? She says she can back up what she's done, but she hasn't done anything that, what has she done? One thing, we'll wait.
How would you react in the event of a Trump losing the election?
I'd be sad, but we have to just make do and keep going and hope things will get better.
Down the street, a whole other scene is unfolding. A small group of protesters are gathering in front of a bright mural. It says, "Vote for our community," both in English and Spanish.
Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump!
They're chanting, "Donald Trump fuera," meaning Donald Trump, go away. The population of Allentown is majority Latino. You may have also heard, on Sunday, a comedian at a Trump rally in New York had called Puerto Rico a, quote, floating island of garbage. And that's what brought many of these protesters here. A couple people are holding Puerto Rican flags. An older woman has one draped over her shoulders.
Muchísimas gracias. Bienvenido a todo en Allentown. Bienvenido a todos nosotros.
The Democratic mayor of Allentown, Matt Turk, is part of this protest too. He's the city's first Latino mayor.
It's not a funny joke. It's an insult to the people here in Allentown. It's an insult.
The group marches up to a corner that's right across the street from a line of Trump supporters waiting to get into the arena. Police officers move in front of the protesters. Some are on bikes, some are on foot. A handful of Trump supporters walk over. Some have signs that say Latinos for Trump. A few others, who are back in the line, start yelling.
The rally is not supposed to start for a few hours at this point, but there's so many people already lined up for entrance, so they timed it to make sure that they would get an audience.
This is Sabrina Rodriguez. She's also here as a politics reporter for The Post, and she has been on the road for months covering voters and the campaigns. I want to know how she sees this moment. Have you ever seen a protest confrontation like this at rallies?
Not really. I mean, there's usually protesters outside of Trump's rallies, but they're not usually protesting around a specific issue, around something specific. So that's the difference today.
We go over to one of the people holding a Latinos for Trump sign. His name is Samuel Negron.
Are you here in Allentown area?
Yeah, I live 2 blocks down, girl.
And you're here for the rally, just to
Yes. Yeah, definitely here for the rally.
Why are you here?
I'm here to support Trump.
You might have heard Sabrina briefly talk about meeting Samuel on yesterday's podcast.
I mean, part of the attention on this Allentown rally is, and I see the Puerto Rican flag tattooed on your arm, is because of comments that were made at Trump's rally on Sunday.
Right.
How do you feel about the comment?
I was so angry. Oh my God, I was double angry.
So he shares these feelings with the protesters. He says he even knows some of them. But he says he's even more angry with the current administration.
I was a Democrat since I was 21 up until 5 years ago. I'm born and raised in this country. I was born in New York. I spent most of my first 10 years in the Bronx, South Bronx through the 70s. 80s, I did Washington Heights, okay? Moved here in 88, I was 18. Went through the drugs, went through all of that stuff, and I've lived under Democratic rule my whole life. And I was a Democrat because, I'm supposed to be. I'm Puerto Rican. They're for minority and poor people. Republicans are for rich white people. You know how mad I was when I found out that was a lie?
So the first time you voted Republican, that would have been 2020?
Yeah.
What triggered it?
Well, around 2017, I saw how things got so much better. Gas was going down. There were no wars. You know what I mean? Everybody was making money.
How would you react if Trump loses?
I'll be so sad. I'll be disappointed. But what can you do? You know what I mean? We're not the ones that are going to go burn the city down. Trust me, that's not going to happen. We're all just going to go back to work and complain.
What do you want Trump to do if he loses?
If he loses, I would suggest, bro, call it quits, go live your life, enjoy it. You did a great job. Thank you for your effort. We tried, puppy.
Sabrina and I head inside the arena for the start of the Trump rally. People are getting revved up to a playlist of Neil Diamond, Van Morrison, and other classics. Messages like Protect the Vote, Too Big to Rig, Trump Will Fix It, and November 5th, the most important day in the history of our country, rotate across the Jumbotron screens.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
Over the next 80 minutes or so, Trump reiterates many of the messages he's made throughout the campaign.
We will end inflation, we will stop the invasion of criminals into our country, and we will bring back the American dream and doing it together, Pennsylvania. Our country will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than ever before. This election is a choice between whether we will have 4 more years of gross incompetence and failure.
He doesn't apologize for the comments at his Sunday rally, but he does say,
and I'm so proud that we're getting support from Latinos like never before. We're setting every record. Hispanics, Latinos. Nobody loves our Latino community and our Puerto Rican community more than I do.
As Trump wraps up, he warns the crowd against the sinister forces of the left.
We will never back down and we will never, ever surrender. Together we will fight, 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 and win, win, win.
With that, the crowd filters out pretty quickly. But I do see Todd Cowson, the casino dealer, and his neighbor Joe Dewar from the Poconos again.
Oh my gosh, what can I ask you? What
Yeah, let me grab Joe again. Hey, Joe! Joe!
These were the guys I talked to at the very beginning in the parking garage.
We were sitting near the front, so my ears are like a little blown out. He's amazing. What he can do with the crowd is just, I mean, you saw it, the energy. People were just excited. You know, and that's the thing, it really draws a lot of people to these things, just that level of excitement.
What was like the biggest...
Joe nods, says he's ready to go home and get some food. But before they leave, Todd says one more thing.
But when everything is said and done, we're all Americans and we all want what's best for the country.
This was their first time hearing Trump in person. They left feeling confident Trump will win.
That, again, was my colleague Alana Gordon. Millions of Americans have already cast their ballots, either by mailing them in or in-person early voting. Millions more will vote on Tuesday on Election Day. Before we go, we've got a couple of stories to share with you. First, a new Washington Post presidential poll finds that the battleground state of Michigan remains a toss-up ahead of Tuesday. Respondents were nearly split on the candidates, with 47% for Trump and 45% for Harris. Among likely voters, Harris has a slight lead. Abortion is her strongest issue in the state. 64% of Michigan voters surveyed said that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. But Trump has one clear advantage in Michigan. Nearly 6 out of every 10 voters had a negative view of the national economy, and more respondents said Trump would handle it better. And if you wake up tomorrow, the day after Halloween, and are stuck staring at a big pumpkin sitting on your front porch that you don't know what to do with, we've got a tip. Do not toss it in the garbage. It will wind up in a landfill where it will rot and release methane, that extra powerful gas that adds to global warming, which is truly scary. Instead, the Post has reported out eco-friendly ways to get rid of a pumpkin. Try composting it, or just smashing it up. See, breaking up the pumpkin lowers methane emissions. They're also great for the soil. And if you don't have a compost bin or a garden, go nuts at a pumpkin smash. Someone in your neighborhood might be organizing one. It's where people gather in a field with bats and sledgehammers to crush the gourds. Sounds great for easing anxiety this time of year. You can find a link to the story in our show notes and at WashingtonPost.com. That's it for Post Reports. Thanks for listening. If you're looking for the latest updates on the big news of the day, check out our morning news briefing, The 7. We bring you through the 7 stories you need to know about every weekday morning by 7 a.m. You can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's show was reported and produced by me and Emma Talkoff and Alana Gordon. It was mixed by Ted Muldoon with help from Bishop Sand. It was edited by Renita Jablonski and Maggie Penman with help from Monica Campbell. Fact-checking by Ariel Plotnick. Thank you to Sabrina Rodriguez for her reporting. I'm Martine Powers. Happy Halloween. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from the Washington Post.